I put out a poll yesterday, just covering some topics on strategy and mergers and acquisitions. So I wanted to share with you some key areas around solid project management during post-merger integration. The reason for that is I was in a mastermind the other day with company Fifth Chrome, unbelievable people, Anna Van Sen and Sarah Rogers, and a few other guys that were on the mastermind, and we covered some of the key areas around post-merger integration. And a key element was the knowledge and appreciation of solid project management when going through an integration. So when I'm put into an integration, or if I'm going in cold, for example, the first thing I will ask is the why. So understanding fully the deal rationale. Now, for me, the deal rationale is usually made up of three key elements. The first one is usually financial. So I don't know if you can see that there, but that's finance. Then the next one is the strategic element. And then the third one, and arguably equally as important, is culture. Now, if the deal rationale is purely finance, and there's been a neglect in strategy and culture, then there's going to be an issue when it comes to the integration. So my objective at the beginning is to understand why. Is it a financial topic? So do we want to increase sales? Do we want to increase profit? Do we want to optimize our cost and expenses? Is there a strategic aim? So do we want to get into markets that we're not into right now? Do we want to grow inorganically and maintain our profit and our sales, etc.? And is there a cultural fit also in the deal rationale? So is this business aligned with my business, that when we bring them together, there won't be much impact when we bring them together? And so understanding the why and establishing key success factors is essential. So if you're going through some corporate development, some inorganic growth, and some origination yourself, you should establish what success looks like from the beginning. So starting with the end in sight. And key success factors, i.e. what success will look like financially, strategically, and culturally, they should be noted and be put in place at the start of your origination, corporate development, growth journey. Because if someone is going to integrate the business, they're going to want to know what that looks like, because it's not achieved until the business is embedded and integrated within your company or your group of companies. So I'll start with the why and understand the deal rationale. And then going into project management. So this will have had a line of sight right from origination. So if you follow the steps of an M&A high level, you'll have origination, establish some targets. You will then obviously condense those targets down into a number of, a long list down to a short list. You'll do some high-level due diligence and then eventually some detailed due diligence after you've done the evaluations. You've maybe made an offer and you've understood your deal design and your deal structure. So we'll call that structure. Then you'll make a non-binding offer and get into detailed due diligence from there. But it's important right from the beginning that you establish a line of sight from your key success factors right from the beginning of your origination down into your deal structure, and eventually understanding how you're going to embed and integrate the business within your group of companies. So you've started your corporate development journey. Just turn this whiteboard around again. Started the corporate development journey. You've got your targets, your due diligence, your evaluation and structure, all aligned with what success looks like based on your financial, strategic and cultural aims. So you've done the deal. And now there's an opportunity for you to understand truly what those success factors are when you integrate the business. Now, you want to obviously maintain business as usual in both companies. And so you want to ensure that the impact is minimal in both companies as well. And that's where solid, robust project management and communication needs to come into play. When that happens, you will get to a point where the business and the deal is done, and you will forecast when a day one will take place. This comes into day one readiness. And then after day one, you'll put in place your 90 or 100-day plan for you to integrate the business. So to easily communicate this process to a deal team, to a leadership team, and then eventually to the wider business, I tend to ask a number of questions that then fall into place of a robust integration management office. So of course I'll ask why first. Then I'll ask who. Who is involved in the process? Who's the project sponsor? Who's going to lead the steering committee? Who are the leadership team? Who are the work stream leads within the company? Who knows about the project and who doesn't? Who are the main stakeholders? Stakeholders are essential, and stakeholder management are essential in any project, but arguably for an integration, you need to understand who your stakeholders are. Who is involved in this project? I'll then ask what needs to be done. Understanding the key success factors and who is involved, there'll be some specialists within the stakeholders that will know more than me potentially what needs to be done to integrate the business. So for example, if it's a systems integration or a systems interface that's part of the integration, I'll need to know who the CIO is or who the chief technical officer is. If there's people that are going to transfer through TUPE and other things here in the UK, then of course I'll need to know who the head of HR and HR business partners are within the workstream leads, etc. They'll know what needs to be done, so I'll be able to ask them and understand quickly why we're doing this, who is involved, what needs to be done, and then we're slowly building our stakeholder groups. So we've got steering committee, leadership team, and workstream leads. Then when we ask them what needs to be done, we're slowly building key tasks that need to be completed. From there, you can establish your milestones, what needs to take place in sequence throughout the program. From there, you're able to understand key tasks that are needed to happen to complete and hit those key milestones and deadlines. Come on to deadlines in a second. And you'll also be able to understand who the key decision makers are and what key decisions need to be made throughout the program. Deadlines. I'll also ask when. There'll be a number of whens throughout the program. So there'll be milestones that need to be hit, and there'll be key deadlines that need to be met in order to interface with key meeting structures, key reporting mechanisms already existing within the business, key milestones for transferring people. Through TUPE, there are timescales that need to be met in order to consult your workforce and your people should they be impacted. All of these things then need to fall into when. A key area to understand when thinking about when are the interdependencies between tasks. Now, for example, if there is a systems interface and there are people changes happening within the business, if your HR workstream lead is working on a people task and your technology lead is working on a systems interface, there may be actions that need to happen first from HR, consulting your people, before a systems interface can take place, the next step in the program. That's called a dependency. So one thing needs to happen before the next thing can start. That's a dependency. If you want two things to happen in parallel, they mustn't have a dependency on one another, or you need to increase resources in order for them to take place at the same time. So I will always ask when. Then I'll ask, in some cases, I'll ask how. How are these things going to take place? How are we going to do it? Do we need to make new processes? Do we need to buy in expertise? Is there anything currently missing from the target and the buying business that's not in place to ensure maintaining line of sight to succeed in hitting the success factors? Who needs to provide the how? What needs to take place and how are we going to deliver it, and when does that need to take place? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then the sixth one I'll always ask is how much? In fact, all of these questions have a how much to them. What's the cost of change here? Do we need to bring in consultants to provide expertise that we don't currently have? Is there a budget in place to provide for that? How much is it going to cost in terms of time to the business and impact to the business? For example, if you're a service-based business and you charge your people out in terms of time, how is that going to be impacted, and is there a cost to that as well? The how much question is something that's very important throughout change and transformation across businesses, because in some cases, because the internal people within the company are enabling that change, these costs are sometimes forgotten and not realised adversely until there's an impact to service and service quality. And so the 6 questions I will ask will be why, key success factors, and understanding what success looks like. That line of sight needs to be met right from the why all the way down to the final question. Who needs to be involved? So then you're able to build your governance structure. You'll have your senior leadership team, perhaps a steering committee. They could be the same thing. They could be combined into the same meeting as a meeting agenda point. You don't necessarily need to have meetings on meetings, but the governance structure is important because there'll be certain times and certain aspects to take into account from the decision makers on when key decisions are going to be made. What needs to take place? So key tasks, deadlines, milestones, dependencies. When do they need to happen? And another important point I like to talk about is not just key success factors, but critical success factors as well. That sometimes can be related to the how and the how much. So a critical success factor, and this sometimes causes some debate around the difference between critical and key success factors. For me, when I talk about key success factors, it is what success looks like. Critical success factors are what needs to take place to ensure success is realized. So a critical success factor may mean that your people need to be consulted on the 1st of October 2023 to ensure that there's a time period of consultation for them to take place. That's a deadline, a milestone, and a critical success factor, because if that doesn't happen, then the program needs to move 4 weeks, example. And then how are these things going to take place? So you can enrich your task and action tracker. You can also start to understand elements of risk associated with the project and the program as well. That's when you go back to who, because there'll be experts that will have done this before within the company that can advise you on their previous lessons learned on previous projects. They can advise you on probability and impact and treatment for risks. They can advise you on issues that happened that weren't foreseen within the program of change. that they had to move quickly and ensure that these things were put in place to mitigate any circumstances or impact to the business when an issue arose throughout the program. And so understanding risks and issues will allow you and your teams to be able to manage the project moving forward. So what have we got now? We've got a governance structure, we've got an understanding of what needs to happen, we've got an understanding of what's critical to the program, critical success factors to ensure the success criteria is met. We've got key milestones, deadlines, dependencies, and then obviously when you apply timescales to that and link the different tasks that are dependent upon each other, the program will start to fill its way out into an overall end date. You can then assign costs to those tasks in terms of time, consultancy fees, resources, in terms of tangible human resources. What's the cost of change in relation to the integration, and is that going to adversely impact the key success factors? And then once you've put in place your integration management office, governance structure, meeting structure, action tracking, risk tracking, issue tracking, regular communication and line of sight, right through all of the governance layers into your key success factors and way back down again to ensure that everyone is aligned with what success will look like strategically, financially, and culturally. Then you're able to measure the impact of change and the impact of success once you've integrated the business. Has our sales gone up? Has our revenue gone up? Have our margins been accretive from the integration? Has the integration cost us more than we forecast? And these things can be done long after the integration or as soon as the integration is finished. Now we talked about as well the impact to cultural change and the impact to morale of the people within the company. It's important not to understand too much detail around the impact of change whilst the change is happening, because of course it's going to give you different opinions and it's going to evolve over time as well, because it's a subjective opinion as to what people are going through. The key thing in my opinion is regular communication and regular communication about the key success factors, what's going to happen, why it's happening, how it's going to happen, and when it's going to happen. So all of these questions you're able to, within reason, communicate back right through your organisation, from your workforce to your senior leader, sponsor, and back and forth line of sight and transparent communication. So just by asking these 6 questions, you're able to put in place a robust integration management office that provides line of sight for the key success factor, the why, who is going to be involved, and if you have any questions, ask this person, for example. What is going to happen and when, how it's going to happen, so how people are going to be communicated to, how are people going to log their timesheets now we've integrated with this company, how are people going to log their expenses now we've integrated with these people. All of these changes, that because you've established them right from the beginning, you're able to put in place a corporate comms plan, you're able to put in place a line of sight and transparent communication as to why this is happening, who is the best person to talk to, and who's going to deliver the change, what the change is going to be, when it's going to take place, and how much. That's obviously something that you'll choose whether to communicate appropriately within the organisation. But by understanding the interdependencies and establishing regular communication points, you'll be able to start to see the program of work in terms of start time, end time, next task can start because it's dependent on the one previous, end time of that task, the next task can start because it's dependent upon those 2 tasks previous. Put them onto deadlines, etc. And so understanding the why right from the beginning, going through into post-merger integration, having line of sight from the origination process, key success factors, who's involved, what will happen, when it will happen, how it will happen, and how much is it going to cost in terms of the impact to the business. And so if you've watched the video, you can go back and watch it again on YouTube. It would be great if you could subscribe to the YouTube channel, because I'll be doing these every week. Feel free to ask as many questions as you want, especially around post-merger integration, mergers and acquisitions, strategy, growth, change, transformation, etc. I'm like a Swiss Army knife when it comes to strategy and growth in business. And ask any questions you want. You'll be able to follow the video if you're faced with any project within your change transformation within your business. Ask these questions. Don't lose sight of your key success factors. You'll be able to build a program and a project management office from that, I'm sure. Track your actions, understand risks, treatment mechanisms, etc. Any issues, have a plan in place for when they come up and mitigate the impact. Regular communication through your governance layers, your leadership, steering if you need one, work stream leads, how often are they going to meet, who are they going to interact with, how is all of that going to be consolidated and communicated back up into your leadership team, etc. And then keep going. Track your milestones, celebrate your wins, and you've got a good project management office there. So just to simplify and communicate it much more transparently within your business. Integration management office. Have a good evening, everyone.